If you're shopping for a paper shredder, you'll quickly realize there are hundreds of options out there, ranging from budget home models to heavy-duty office machines. But which ones are actually worth your money? In this video, I'll be reviewing 4 of the most popular paper shredders on Amazon, breaking down what real buyers are saying after using them. I'll cover what each shredder does well, where it falls short, and who should actually buy it, so you don't end up wasting money on the wrong one. Let's get started. 1. Woolsh 14 Sheet Crosscut Paper Shredder. If you're looking for a home office shredder that doesn't cost a fortune, but can still handle more than just the occasional piece of junk mail, the Woolsh 14 Sheet Crosscut Shredder is definitely worth considering. On paper, it promises high-security P4 shredding, the ability to shred CDs and credit cards, and a generous wastebasket. But after reading through what owners have to say, there's a pretty clear picture of where this shredder excels, and where it doesn't. The first thing that stood out to me is how many people describe it as a great value for the money. Owners consistently mention that it shreds quickly, rarely jams, and handles everyday jobs like bank statements, old tax documents, and junk mail without much effort. I also like that it accepts staples, clips, CDs, and credit cards, so you don't have to spend time sorting everything beforehand. Another thing buyers appreciate is how easy it is to live with. The large basket has a viewing window, it's simple to empty, and several reviewers mention that it's quieter than they expected. It's not silent, but it's certainly not the loud monster some budget shredders can be. That said, this isn't a heavy-duty office machine. Quite a few long-term owners mention that after a year or two of regular use, performance starts to decline. Some began experiencing jams or noticed the shredder struggled in the center of the feed slot. Others eventually stripped the internal gears after pushing it through large backlogs of paperwork. There's also the built-in cooling system. After about 5 minutes of continuous shredding, the machine shuts itself down and needs around 30 minutes to cool. For occasional home use, that's perfectly reasonable, but if you're planning to shred boxes of old paperwork in one sitting, it can become frustrating. So who should buy it? I'd recommend it to anyone looking for an affordable shredder for regular home use, weekly mail, financial documents, expired credit cards, and the occasional cleanup session. But if you routinely shred hundreds of pages, or want something that will take heavy abuse for years, I'd spend more on a true heavy-duty model. Overall, I think this is one of those products that delivers exactly what most home users need, as long as you treat it like a home shredder and not an industrial machine. 2. Bonsai 6-Sheet Crosscut Paper Shredder. The Bonsai 6-Sheet Crosscut Shredder is one of those products that isn't trying to be the biggest or the most powerful. Instead, it's designed for people who simply want an affordable, compact shredder for everyday home use. And after reading through dozens of customer reviews, I'd say that's exactly where this machine shines. What impressed me most is how realistic customer expectations are. Almost nobody is buying this expecting to shred massive stacks of paper. Instead, people use it for junk mail, old bills, receipts, and expired credit cards. And for that kind of work, the feedback is overwhelmingly positive. Owners consistently praise how compact and lightweight it is. It fits easily under a desk, doesn't take up much space, and the built-in handle makes emptying the bin surprisingly easy. The transparent window is another small touch people appreciate, because you can see when it's getting full before it starts making a mess. Performance also gets a lot of positive comments. While the official rating says 6 sheets at a time, many experienced users actually recommend sticking to 3 or 4 sheets if you want smoother operation and less heat buildup. When used that way, people say it rarely jams, handles staples without complaint, and even shreds credit cards reliably. The biggest downside is that this is definitely a light-duty shredder. Several reviewers mention that it overheats if you try to push it too hard, although most also say that's expected at this price. It's also louder than some buyers anticipated, so don't expect whisper-quiet operation. I also noticed a common piece of advice from long-term owners: don't obsess over the 6-sheet rating. Feed it a few pages at a time, and it'll probably last much longer. Many people reported running it well beyond the advertised duty cycle, without issues simply because they didn't overload it. So who should buy this? I'd recommend it for students, families, apartment owners, or anyone who just wants to securely dispose of personal documents every week. It's compact, affordable, and easy to use. Who shouldn't buy it? If you're cleaning out years of paperwork or regularly shredding large stacks of documents, this simply isn't built for that workload. Overall, I think Bonsai got the balance right here. It's not trying to replace an expensive office shredder, but for everyday home use, it does exactly what most people need, and that's why so many owners seem happy with it. 3. Fellows Power Shred 99 CI 18 Sheet Crosscut Shredder. If you've ever owned one of those cheap shredders that constantly jams, overheats, or forces you to feed in 2 sheets at a time, the Fellows Power Shred 99 CI feels like a completely different experience. This is a heavy-duty shredder built for people who regularly deal with stacks of paperwork, and after reading through years of customer reviews, one thing became pretty obvious: people don't just like this shredder, they tend to keep it for years. What really stands out to me is how often owners call it a workhorse. There are reviews from people who've used it for 4, 7, even 10 years with very few problems. Many buyers specifically mention replacing multiple cheap shredders before finally buying the 99 CI, and most say they wish they'd spent the extra money sooner because it saved them a lot of frustration. Performance is where this machine really earns its reputation. It powers through thick stacks of paper, staples, credit cards, CD, and even unopened junk mail without much effort. The anti-jam system gets a lot of praise because instead of simply getting stuck, it actually detects when you've overloaded it and often corrects itself before a jam happens. Several reviewers even shredded years' worth of tax documents and paperwork over multiple days without any major issues. Another thing people consistently mention is how quiet it is. For such a powerful shredder, buyers say it produces more of a low hum than the high-pitched whining you usually hear from cheaper models. The pull-out bin also makes emptying much easier, and safety features like SafeSense give extra peace of mind if you have kids or pets around. Now, it's not perfect. Even though the bin is fairly large, several owners mentioned that crosscut paper fills it faster than you'd expect, especially if you're shredding hundreds of pages. The machine will also eventually stop to cool itself down during marathon shredding sessions, although most buyers actually see that as a good thing because it protects the motor rather than letting it burn. The biggest downside is simply the price. This costs considerably more than your average home shredder, but judging by the reviews, most owners feel it's actually cheaper in the long run because they're not replacing broken budget shredders every couple of years.
So who should buy it?
I'd recommend it for anyone with a home office, small business, or simply years of paperwork to destroy. If you shred documents regularly and want something reliable, this is one of the easiest recommendations I've come across. If you only shred a few pieces of junk mail once a month, it's probably more machine than you actually need. Overall, I think the Fellows 99 CI earns its premium price. It's powerful, reliable, surprisingly quiet, and built to last. And judging by the customer feedback, it's one of those purchases people rarely regret. Fellows 14C 1014 sheet crosscut paper shredder. The Fellows 14C10 sits right in the sweet spot between a basic home shredder and a heavy-duty office machine. It's designed for people who want something more capable than a budget model, without stepping up to the much more expensive commercial shredder. After looking through the customer feedback, I'd say it mostly succeeds at exactly that. The first thing that stood out to me is how many people praise how easy this shredder is to use. The pull-out bin gets mentioned over and over because you no longer have to lift the entire shredding head just to empty. It's one of those small quality-of-life improvements that owners really seem to appreciate. Several reviewers also love the built-in wheel, saying they make moving the shredder around much easier. Performance is another strong point. Buyers say it handles everyday home office work with ease, shredding paper, staples, paper clips, credit cards, and even unopened junk mail without much complaint. Many describe it as surprisingly quiet, especially compared to older shredders they've owned. Some even compare it to their previous Fellows machines that lasted well over a decade, hoping this one proves just as dependable. I also noticed that customers consistently describe it as a great everyday shredder. It doesn't feel flashy, it just gets the job done. One reviewer even called it the Toyota Camry of shredders, which honestly sums it up pretty well. It's dependable, straightforward, and built for regular use rather than showing off. The downsides are mostly about expectations. While it's rated for up to 14 sheets, several owners mention that it feels happiest with smaller stacks if you want the smoothest performance. The waste bin also fills up fairly quickly because crosscut shreds take up more space than you might expect. Durability is where opinions become a little more mixed. Plenty of buyers report excellent reliability, but there are also reviews from people whose units failed after several months or who felt the plastic body wasn't quite as heavy-duty as older Fellows models. So while the brand still has a strong reputation, this particular model doesn't feel quite as bulletproof as some of the company's premium shredders.
So who should buy it?
I think it's a great choice for anyone working from home or managing regular household paperwork. It's quiet, easy to empty, offers good security, and has enough capacity for typical weekly shredding jobs.
Who shouldn't buy it?
If you're constantly shredding huge stacks of paper or need something built for heavy daily use, I'd probably move up to the Fellows 99 CI instead. Overall, I think the 14C10 strikes a really nice balance. It's easy to use, performs well, and offers the kind of reliability most home users are looking for. It may not be the toughest shredder Fellows makes, but for everyday home office use, it's a solid choice. If you found any of these fit your needs, you can check these out in the description.